In 1324, a man began a journey that would shock the world. Not because of war, not because of conquest, but because of wealth. Across the burning sands of the Sahara Desert, a massive caravan stretched farther than the eye could see. Camels carried not food, not weapons, but gold. So much gold that entire cities would never be the same again. This was no ordinary traveler. This was Mansa Musa, the emperor of the Mali Empire and the richest man in history. Long before European empires rose to global dominance, West Africa was home to powerful and wealthy kingdoms. Among them, the Mali Empire stood above the rest. It was a land blessed with natural resources, especially gold, the most valuable metal in the medieval world. At one point, Mali controlled nearly half of the world's gold supply. Trade routes stretched across the Sahara Desert, connecting West Africa to North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. Along these routes, merchants traded gold, salt, ivory, and knowledge. Cities like Timbuktu became thriving centers of culture, education, and commerce. And at the center of this powerful empire stood a ruler whose wealth would become the stuff of legend. Mansa Musa became emperor in 1312 under unusual circumstances. According to historical accounts, the previous ruler had set out on an expedition across the Atlantic Ocean and never returned. With the throne left empty, Musa stepped in to lead the empire. But he was not just a king, he was a visionary. Under his rule, Mali expanded its territories, strengthened its control over trade routes, and grew even richer. Yet despite all his power and wealth, Mansa Musa was a deeply religious man. As a devoted Muslim, he felt a strong responsibility to complete the Hajj, the sacred pilgrimage to Mecca, something every Muslim hopes to achieve at least once in their life. When Mansa Musa decided to make this journey, he didn't treat it like a simple religious trip. Instead, he turned it into one of the most extraordinary displays of wealth the world had ever seen. In 1324, he began his pilgrimage, and what followed was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. His caravan included around 60,000 people, soldiers, servants, officials, and attendants. Many of them wore fine silk and carried staffs of gold. Hundreds of camels marched alongside them, each loaded with over 100 kilograms of pure gold. The entire procession looked like a moving river of wealth flowing through the desert. As the caravan passed through cities and towns, people gathered just to catch a glimpse of it. Word spread quickly. There was a king traveling across the land who seemed to possess endless riches. When Mansa Musa reached major cities like Cairo, the reaction was overwhelming. People had never seen anything like this before. But what he did next would make his journey unforgettable in history. Instead of hoarding his wealth, Mansa Musa began giving it away. He distributed gold to the poor, gifted it to local officials, and spent lavishly in markets. His generosity knew no limits. At first, people celebrated him as a kind and powerful ruler. But soon, something unexpected began to happen. The sudden flood of gold into the economy caused its value to drop. Gold, once rare and precious, became more common. As a result, prices of goods began to rise. Markets became unstable. This phenomenon is now known as inflation. In Cairo and other regions he passed through, the economy was deeply affected. Historians believe that the impact of Mansa Musa's spending was so massive that it took more than a decade for the economy to recover. Imagine that. One man, through sheer generosity, unintentionally disrupting entire economic systems. It was a reminder that even wealth, when used without balance, could have consequences far beyond what anyone might expect. After completing his pilgrimage to Mecca, Mansa Musa returned to Mali, but he was no longer just an emperor. He had become a global legend. Stories of his wealth spread across continents. European maps from the time even began to feature his image, showing him holding a piece of gold, symbolizing his immense riches. But Mansa Musa's true legacy wasn't just about wealth. It was about what he chose to do with it. Back in Mali, he invested heavily in the development of his empire. He ordered the construction of grand mosques, educational institutions, and libraries. Cities like Timbuktu flourished under his rule, becoming world-renowned centers of learning. Scholars, poets, and thinkers traveled from distant lands to study there. Knowledge became just as valuable as gold in his empire. Mansa Musa transformed Mali into not only an economic powerhouse, but also an intellectual and cultural hub. Even today, historians struggle to calculate just how rich Mansa Musa truly was. If his wealth were adjusted to modern standards, it would likely surpass billions, possibly even trillions of dollars. But numbers alone cannot capture the scale of his influence. His journey across the desert, his generosity, and his vision for his empire created a legacy that has lasted for centuries. Mansa Musa's story is more than than just a tale of riches. It is a story about power, responsibility, and the impact one individual can have on the world. A man so rich that history cannot fully measure his wealth. A journey so grand that it reshaped economies. And a legacy so powerful that even today, centuries later, we are still telling his story.